Hi, everyone. Welcome to this live stream. I have a very special guest today. His name is Carl Johan Calleman, and I will be sharing with you a little bit more about his bio. I just want to say what we will be talking about. It is the ninth wave, and it is a very specific research that he has come to through his time during his time living in Guatemala, and also he was at some point living in Mexico, where he started to dive in to the Mayan cosmology and finding out really interesting things beyond what has been told about the how it's normally called the Mayan calendar. I prefer to address to it as a cyclic system. And well, welcome. This ninth wave is talking about that deep, going to the core of this Mayan systems, this designed structures to quantify the cycles in which the universe functions. And I called it defined threads behind the Mayan cosmology. And well, this is just one thing which Carl will be talking to us about. So, a little bit about his bio. Carl Johan Calleman has a PhD in physical biology from the University of Stockholm, and following which he was a senior researcher at the School of Public Health at the University of Washington in Seattle, focusing especially on identifying toxic substances in the human environment. That's very interesting. A backpacking trip to Mexico and Guatemala in 1979 was a life-changing event, and he left his academic career in 1993 and has since spent the past 30 years developing an understanding of the meaning of the calendar of the ancient Mayan that makes it meaningful to modern people, which is very important, bringing it to daily life basis. As part of this quest, he has lectured in 25 countries and written 8 books, which have been translated to 14 languages and sold more than 100,000 copies. He has also filmed the first interview with Don Alejandro YssaH, head of Council of Elders in Guatemala. That's amazing. Pure indigenous wisdom, ancient wisdom, available to an audience in the Western world. His current focus is on the application of macrocosmic quantum theory, an all-encompassing theory of evolution emanating from these studies. So, we will be talking also about his macrocosmic quantum theory, as this is a result of his work. So, having said this, I want to welcome Carl.
Thank you very much, YssaH. Thank you for having me. I'm looking forward. It will be great to address your particular audience and the people you have attracted with your own work. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So, Carl, tell me, or actually tell us, I'm just focusing, as I thought, sometimes in these configurations right now, it was not going directly to the public, it was in private. So now, so tell us, Carl, overall, this, from everything that I have read in your bio, what is the most important message that the ancient Mayan left for us to unveil, as you have, to bring it alive to this present?
Mm. Yeah, I think that's pretty clear. The main message is that we're living in a cosmic time plan, and that particular time plan has a direction. In other words, it points to where we are meant to go also in the future. But in order to understand where we're meant to go into the future, it helps to understand where we come from how the Mayan calendar system describes the past and led us up to where we are. But this is quite unique, the fact that there is a direction for humanity outlined in this calendar system. You don't really find that in other calendar systems that are being used. Most of them are just about repeating a cycle, repeat, repeat. But it doesn't tell anything about the bigger picture of why this creation has come into existence to begin with, or where it's meant to go.
Okay, so for instance, if we come from from the calendars, for instance, the Gregorian calendar, which actually the word calendar, I love etymology. So calendar comes from calendas, which is mainly what the word that once the Romans created to charge for the taxes, and like establishing very specific dates for that. So we know that from this Gregorian calendar and how our perception of reality, for instance, in from a third dimensional form of perception, it's mostly applied as a linear form, like you have the past, you have the present, and you have the future. Would you say that this Mayan system, algorithmic system, diving deep into the infinite field of probabilities and setting into patterns, is mostly focused to the continuum of space-time, this spiraling continuum form?
Well, you can say that in a sense. In the ancient Mayan view, and that's mostly what I'm talking about, is what did the ancient Maya believe, as far as I have understood it. Then at the center of the universe, there is something, they called it Vaka-chan, which means the tree of life, or the world tree. And what we know about that world tree, in their view, is that would govern both space and time. This is quite unusual, because the tree of life exists all over the planet. All cultures have a reverence of the tree of life. And many of them use the tree of life as a center for instance, medicine wheels, or the four directions. In other words, it's the organizer of space. But if you look at the ancient Mayan books, the codices that still survived, you will find that the tree of life is also at the center of the 20-day signs of the sacred calendar, meaning that it also governed time. So it's the chief organizer of space-time, I would say.
That is lovely, because I mean, I feel passionate about unified physics, and also about biology, and also about the science of the spirit, and so forth. And when I see how there is such an impeccability in which the ancient civilizations, most of them, translated how the universe functions. Like, for instance, this space-time, we can even see it in the Cartesian plane. If you want to have a coordinate, you cannot have it without the two constants. You know, there cannot be any time without space. Where would it happen? You know, and they got it. They got it really clear. So yeah, that's why for me it's so important to spread all this information, so that we can restore to all that wisdom about the tree of life. And as you have said, you know, like there are many civilizations that take into consideration the tree of life. For me, for instance, because I also saw you in a show talking about them. Well, you were covering like the Big Bang theory, and in comparison to the Mayan, that they knew that the universe existed before the Big Bang theory. Well, before the Big Bang, or the theory.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then I started going through all these thoughts, and I said, I'm the source of to all. And I'm bored. And consciousness is feedback. Therefore, I need to replicate myself in order to have that feedback and generate a state of awareness. And therefore, you know, be that consciousness. And for me, that was the tree of life. So, you know, as below as above. So I would love for you to share your insights, based on your research, the facts that you have come to about this tree of life, how there is a core for everything to happen, not just random things simultaneously being.
Yeah. Well, you know, first of all, I'd like to comment on that. The modern physics, as you pointed out, also has this concept of a unified space-time, and that's part of Einstein's general theory of relativity. But there is a significant difference in the sense that when that theory organizes time and space, it doesn't give any kind of spiritual energies to any segments, any compartments of either time or space. And that's very different from how actually, I would say, all Native American peoples in particular, who would create medicine wheels, they would have a particular energy in one direction and another one in another direction. And these are spiritual energies. And the same would go then with how the Tree of Life organizes time with the 20-day signs, especially in the Mayan and the Aztec traditions, which each has a particular energy and spiritual energy. And that's a significant difference that sort of has not become part of the modern world, so to speak. Now but because I said that, I forgot your question.
It's beautiful.
Yes. Okay. As it was, I remember here. Yeah. So you know, the tree of life. Yes, I think I know what you mean. That it's not just a cosmic phenomenon that is on an unfathomable large scale that organizes the entire universe in various ways. It is also something that sort of serves as a source. And there would be not only the cosmic tree of life, but then that would be reflected down in the galactic tree of life. And then there is a solar system tree of life, and then it's the planetary tree of life. And then down here with ourselves, you know, we are, and I think this is what you were getting to, we are ourselves manifestations of this tree of life. And this is also something that you could see in the Mayan pictures, if you go down to, for instance, to Copan in Honduras today, you will see that the kings from 1500 years ago, they're actually sculpted with a tree in front of them, so to speak. They are that tree of life. And that was kind of an ideal for, as I understand it, for people in those times to manifest, to be the tree of life and to sort of follow the shifting energies of the tree of life in everything that we do.
Yeah, sort of network, the interface, that space memory network, every branch, every circuit that is interconnecting it all. That's how I see it as well. Now that you're mentioning all of this, the torus, how it's bringing together all the information, and that we ourselves are living torus, a walking torus, to say it somehow. So, about the Popol Vuh, for the people that doesn't know what the Popol Vuh is, the Popol Vuh, it can be considered a book of creation where the Mayan translated their knowingness about how the universe began, how life started. And they do it as how I perceive now. Carl, you will say, I perceive this is a very encoded book. Like, you can even tune into the constellations, because every character is also a constellation. They even talk about this through the Lords of Xibalba and so forth, and the Pleiades. But anyway, so what my question is, did you find much of this information of the ninth wave? And now our viewers will will know more about what the ninth wave is, because it can sound like, with all these theories of what the Mayans were predicting as the end of the world and so forth, which was a misinterpretation also in the dates, as you have mentioned to me, Carl. And the ninth wave might sound like that movie, The Fifth Wave, like, wow, now the ninth wave has arrived. Are they going to talk about the Third World War? No. It's more fundamental. This is more fundamental. We're going into the core of how the universe functions. So, did you find any of this information in the Popol Vuh about the ninth wave?
No, I don't think so. Not directly, so to speak. The Popol Vuh has a number of different creation stories, different varieties of it. There is one where the 8 beings are coming down from the Pleiades. There is one with the shooting down of 7 Macau. There is one with the flood, the Mayan flood, and a couple of other ones as well. But really, I don't think you find the ninth wave, which is not very strange in a sense, because it was not a wave that had been activated by the time that the Maya were living. Not even the 7th wave had been activated by the time that the ancient Maya were developing their calendar system. So they didn't talk very much about this. But can I show a
Sure.
few slides? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, sure, please.
Okay. So, one thing, when it comes to the ninth wave, one thing we should know is that the major pyramids that the Maya would build, and here you have the Temple of the Inscriptions in Palenque, they are built in 9 levels like this. And that's not only true for Palenque, it's true for Tikal, the temple of the great jaguar. It's true for Chichen Itza, the temple of the plumed serpent, and the major temple in Mayapan. They built them in 9 levels. And this is not accidental, it's really a very important aspect. And it's the pyramids are not flat lines like this, and this is the reason for this is that it really creates a kind of quantum system where you make quantum leaps between the different levels of the pyramid, these 9 levels. And so that's the reason they have to build it in like a terrace pyramid like this. And anyway, here you have the pyramid of the plumed serpent in Chichen Itza or Kukulkan, and this one also has 9 levels. And then it creates, as maybe some listeners have been to watch the descent of the plumed serpent on the spring equinox. And then what happens is that the terraces, they project these kind of these kind of triangles onto the staircase that leads down into the head of the plumed serpent. And it is believed that the house on the top is the center of the universe, and from there these waves are going across the universe. And there are 9 levels of them, but then each one of these levels, each plumed serpent is made up from 7 triangles of light and alternating with 6 triangles of darkness. And this is in a nutshell the Mayan calendar system. So there are 9 levels, and each one of them you can refer to as a plumed serpent. Or in other words, as a wave movement. And that's what should I say? It's more of a metaphor than seems at first. The plumed serpent is critical, I think, for anybody who wants to understand the Mayan calendar system, because here you have the oldest known representation of the plumed serpent in La Venta, which is an Olmec site in Mexico. And here, what's interesting about this is that you have the plumed serpent, but then you have a deity here also. And the deity has a little handbag, which presumably means that the deity of Quetzalcoatl, the deity of the plumed serpent, is bringing the gifts of civilization to humanity. Nobody knows if that interpretation is true, but it is one that makes sense, because we know that the plumed serpent was believed to have been the bringer of life, the bringer of civilization, and the bringer of the calendar. And so then it's not so far-fetched to think that this plumed serpent, through its waves, so to speak, in modern language, this would be a quantum wave. In ancient language or ancient understanding, it would be the wave movement of the plumed serpent, like a living deity, you might say. So anyway, the way these pyramids are built would imply that they are actually 9 levels. And when you start to look this apart, take this apart, then you start to see that there are 9 such levels. Let me see here. 9 such levels. And each one of them it has a starting point in the calendar system. And these starting points, they come essentially from the site of Koba and Yaxchilan on the border between Mexico and Guatemala. And it sort of starts in the first level with the Big Bang and the emergence of all matter, really, or planets and stars and galaxies and so forth. And then the next level starts to bring animals. And then the next level would be monkeys and primates, and the next level would be humans. And then when you go through the higher waves, each one has a particular activation date, and each one of the activation dates some kind of a radical revolution in human life. And presumably, these revolutions are created by shifts in consciousness that affect the entire planet and everyone who is alive. It doesn't manifest everywhere, but certainly it manifests in certain places. And then you can say, if you go back 100,000 years ago, then humans start to become humans rather than just animals, you might say. And then comes the long count, which is the particular calendar that the Maya would always use to date their pyramids and altars and so forth, which brings the major civilizations, not in the Americas, but in Egypt and Mesopotamia and so forth. And then comes the Industrial Revolution, digital revolution, and then finally the highest wave is with the highest frequency is one bringing unity consciousness. And so far, it's just very partially that people have started to relate to that and started to develop resonance with it. But this is basically a short form. So here you can say that these different waves, they are paralleled in the pyramids that have each one of them. Like to go through this evolution is like climbing a pyramid, you might say. And that's what we meant to do. And that's sort of where the direction of the Mayan calendar system is coming in.
You know, Carl, you were saying something very, I'm going to, whenever you want to show something, just let me know.
Okay. Sure.
Just, when you were talking about the 13 and, the 9 steps, and then being 7 in light and 6 in darkness, like forming these triangles, it is a 13. So then you have the 9 and then you have the 13, which are actually embedded in the structure also of the Tzolk'in. If we, like count the wave, let's say the waves within the Tzolk'in, each wave gives you, well, the main ones, as I was telling you the other time, it gives you 9, 13, 9, 13, 9, 13, 9, 13. And 9 plus 13 is 22, which is also a number that is even related to the Kabbalah and the letters in the Hebrew alphabet. When we go to the book of creation, the Sefer Yetzirah for them, which would be the Popol Vuh for the Mayan, they talk about the 22. So now, well, that's one thing that I wanted to say. So now when we see the pyramids from above, and we see that for instance, Chichen Itza, if we see Chichen Itza from above, we see the structure that is like a cube going in layers, in those 9 layers, going inwards or outwards, creating this cubic form. So they were creating a pyramid while also creating a cube from a different perspective. And that's impressive, to say, not to say
sure, yeah,
remarkable. And I'm sorry, you wanted
Yeah.
to say something.
No. Well, the number 22, if you take the Tzolk'in, the commonly used and still in use in Guatemala very much in the daily 260-day counts. It's like a microcosm of all of these various cycles that are developing the universe. But it's just a microcosm. But still, you may notice that if you go to number 22, as you're saying, of the days, starting with one Imish and going there. Number 22 has the symbols of 9 winds, and 9 winds is the Tzolk'in energy of Quetzalcoatl or Kukulkan. So it's there for a reason, so to speak, or it is for a reason that they have chosen that as the Tzolk'in energy for Kukulkan 20.
Palenque, in Palenque, because you mentioned Palenque, we have the Bolon Ik, which in Mayan is the 9 breath. Ik is breath and Bolon is 9. And it's also a very important belief that they have in the shape of a T, which is actually a cube unfolded, like even like the Vitruvius Man, how our body is, it's creating a T, when we extend our arms. And I'm sorry, I was just visualizing ourselves like incubated, and then goes, let's say, the wind, and then we unfold into a T. My mind flows as an artist, so
yeah.
And I also wanted to say, you were, well, about the 9, now, because you will be sharing more about the 9th wave. Thank you for putting it in a very, summarized way so that the viewers can comprehend, can understand it. Like for it to be easier for them to understand. And however, I do think that the people watching this transmission are Mayan lovers, and or will fall in love with the Mayan culture for sure. So they might know something about it. And so 9, as you were saying, we have the fundamental pattern of the waves, which is the serpent. Even though we have different kind of waves, like the synodal or quadrangular, triangular, the true emission is, it's a wave, even though it's pointy, it's showing out this spin or this flowing nature of the universe. And now the relation of the 9, we know that the energy is plasma, like the different, like this electric current as plasma. And for me, it was very interesting and beautiful to find out that the scientific studies have shown that in order to create plasma, a field of 9 torus needs to be generated to have that fire collapse charge, And now, in relation to the 9th wave, just to mention 2, because we can relate the 9 to, full spectrum. So, do you think that in order to move to that plasma, to that 9th wave, it's inherent for us to activate our plasma field into the next level, into the resonance?
Yeah, well, I must say I'm not familiar enough with the plasma field to really answer it, but I will give some other. If you show the picture,
Sure.
Okay. So this is how I come to conclude about it, that here you have the pyramid, and each one of the levels of the pyramid is a quantum wave. And then when you climb the pyramid, you climb to higher and higher frequencies of these waves. Every wave is 20-fold higher frequency than the wave that it stands upon. And here in the bottom, basically, is just the evolution of biological evolution of different species. And then with the fifth wave, which is the midpoint of the whole staircase, you might say, then human states of consciousness start to be downloaded from the cosmic center. And here you see, this is the state of consciousness that was downloaded 100,000 years ago. And then we have, with the higher waves, we have been endowed with other states of consciousness. And so basically we have gone through a process where we've gone through unity, through separation in these different states, and then back to unity consciousness. And that's really something we could discuss. What is unity consciousness? And I think it has a lot to do with not projecting darkness on anybody else, but also not projecting any darkness onto yourself. And if you can do that through somehow interacting with plasma, then that's great. And I just don't know enough about that to be able to address it. But I think it's important to realize that these different states of consciousness have created in different eras different kinds of human beings. We haven't been the same kind of human beings for the past 2 million years, because especially then in the past 100,000 years, there has been this sequence of shifting states of consciousness. Not everyone might go through this. We are sort of a complex mixture of it, you might say. But you know, if you look at it in this way, it might be a little bit more understandable. So here you can look at how these different states of consciousness, the wave creates a particular state of consciousness, you might say. And then here you have the number, the dates when they are activated. And activated means that they become accessible, something we can download or something we can resonate with or so. And then you can say that, you know, before 5,000 years ago, before the beginning of the Mayan long count, which is the sixth wave, people were in some kind of a unity, some kind of almost like some kind of floating shamanistic state of consciousness, something, you know, people who might have tried ayahuasca would know what that kind of floating state would be like. But then comes a huge shift in consciousness, in the state of consciousness, 3115 BCE. And as you can see, not only is there a dualist mind that is downloaded, but it's also a geometrically structured mind that is downloaded. So before this point in time, people were sort of, you know, floating around is the best thing I can say. And but then they downloaded geometries, and suddenly they're able to build pyramids, they're able to build cities, roads, many other things that we associate with civilizations. But then it's also a talking about the relationship to the divine. It's only the light falls on the left brain half, and the left brain half is the brain half that's we use when we're writing or reading. And what that means is that what came to dominate this state of consciousness are scriptural religions that still survive to our day, of course, but they were formed in this time period. And all over the world, basically, you know, the big ones are Christianity, Islam, Buddhism, and Hinduism, and so forth. But they go back to some saying that scripture is holy, and then that's linked to the fact that the writing was a holy phenomenon that they downloaded for only when they started to download geometries. And then comes mid 1700s, the seventh wave, and as you can see, it's a filter of the entire perception of reality. You can say that the temporarily, at least, the connection to the divine cosmic source is cut off. And this is when people, you see in certain parts of the world, people are becoming atheists because they, and it's a very materialist time period that begins with that. And then you can say that not until the eighth wave, or maybe a little bit earlier than that, then a new kind of spirituality starts to emerge, which is not really scriptural because it's not based on the left brain half. It's instead, you can talk about it as New Age, because it's eclectic. People will take what they like from different kinds of traditions, and they are not assigning to any particular book that this is the truth or so. And then, but this is still a limited perception of reality, and it's only with the highest level then when there is a return, in a sense, return to some kind of shared unity with the divine is the best thing I can say. But this, I'm showing this just in order to illustrate that there are states of consciousness that are distinct and based on certain geometries. And the geometries that I'm showing here, they are very simple. In reality, I think the geometries are much more complex than this is, but there is a significant pattern, and it sort of explains to us the whole trajectory that we've gone through when it comes to the rise of civilization and ending up with the ninth wave, with some people who are developing their resonance with this. I just want to show this one. This is how this is an old Mixtec, which is a people down in Oaxaca, and they have this duality state of consciousness, that how they presented it, so to speak, and then of course I've made it more modern, if you like.
Could you show it again, please?
The Mixtec?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, please.
Okay.
2, 4, 5, 6, 7. Because I was counting, like it has 5 on one side and 7 on the other, which is a 12. So we're speaking about geometry, it would be a dodecahedron. But anyway, it also catches my attention that you were saying, could you show the one of the 9 waves, how they started, like in relation to the animals and the creation of the animals?
Oh, okay.
And so forth?
Okay. This one, that one, right?
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. So, saying humans in the 4th wave, then we have other 5 in order to complete the 9. We were talking about geometries, so we have the 5 platonic solids to say to unify it with it. We have also 5 so far discovered brain waves, because every time that you say you're talking about the 9th wave and the 1st wave and so forth, I like to connect it with other spheres of information. So of course our brain expands, our consciousness expands as we stimulate our brain with very specific frequencies, so it can also be translated into those 5 because then there is a revolution going brain-wise, while we start to stimulate it with very specific frequencies. So, and yeah, I could go so far, but well, I could go on in these forms of relation, even at a biological scale with the and chemical. But anyway, now about the 20, because perhaps some of the viewers don't know the importance of the 20 in relation to the Mayan cosmology. So besides that being that solar frequency of the Hunabku, how would you translate the 20 and why is it so important? Because a lot of the viewers are also very related to the sun, like the solar frequency, the solar consciousness.
Yeah. Well, the 20, first of all, it is part of the, the 20, it is part of the sacred calendar. The 260-day calendar is based on 20 times 13, simply. So it is a fundamentally important thing. But then there is also what you can see here are the 9 levels of the pyramid, and this is again another picture. This one I took myself from Chichen Itza, but each of these waves has a particular frequency, and when you climb from one level to another, you will increase the frequency of 20-fold, 20 times, so to speak. So in that sense, the throughout the course of evolution of the universe is an enormous increase in frequency, but every step is only made in a 20-fold increase. So you can see here, and so it is an important, definitely an important constant, you can say, in the Mayan calendar system.
Yes, because even if we divide 20 by 6, it gives us 3.33333 infinitely. The 33 is also numerical code, which is very important and quite related to the 33 vertebrae, just to say one example. Now that you mentioned the waves, I want to ask you, for instance, if the collective is going through a valley of the curvature of the wave, it mostly implies or is interconnected to a resistance of the energy against the let's say the core line, the axis of the wave. We could say that it's resistance, like resonance and resistance or dissonance. Would you say it?
Yeah, well, here you have the trecena, and all these different waves. Trecena, as you know, it's a Spanish word for 13,
Yes.
and it is a group of 13, and this is you can see this is basically the plumed serpent, but the plumed serpent then undergoes this kind of a waveform. And then with every such time period, like the first time period of the trecena, on the second time period, there will be a deity, a god in Aztec tradition. These are Aztec names that creates the energy of that time period. So it goes through here, and what you find is that when the time periods are peaks, when they're above this line, this arrow, so to speak, then you find that there's relatively positive deities, relatively good deities. There's goddess of water and birth, goddess of love, god of maize, god of light, that's Quetzalcoatl, goddess of birth, and eventually then the biggest god, the male, female, or Ometeotl. If you look at the time periods when there are valleys, then you have the kind of much less positive deities. God of warriors, god of death, god of rain, god of darkness, and so forth. And this reflects something fundamental about how the plumed serpent, how the wave movements are developing any phenomenon in the human creation. And meaning that it's the time periods that are peaks that are the ones that are creative, that create something positive, something forward going, forward movement, so to speak, in the life of anything really, but including the life of human beings. The time periods that are valleys, on the other hand, are better described as dark ages. And sometimes they will carry destruction, and sometimes they will, but sometimes they will just create transformation. And to some extent, it has to do with choices that people make. But definitely, I would say that the times that are valleys are much more difficult, much more, we will have to fight with the resistance, and we will have to very often things from the past, from lower levels of the waves, will come back to haunt us, so to speak, and we'll have to work ourselves through that. Whereas when there is a peak, we have more like wind on the back and more inclined to move forward. And so.
Okay. So for the people to understand, all the waves, well, perhaps from the fifth, because from the 1 to the 4th, it is settling drastic evolution within this species that you were talking about, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So from the 5th to the 9th are simultaneously coexisting right now. There is people that is currently in the 5th wave. There is people that's in the 6th, 7th, and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
And the goal is to reach the 7th, the 9th wave, which is the unity consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
So is there a tool that you have seen within all this Mayan cosmology to give that quantum leap to the 9th wave? Of course, there is a sequence, an order that everyone goes through.
Mm-hmm.
Just to, let's say, surf those
Yeah.
waves.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there are people that are developing tools, you might say, and I think you have to be ready, so to speak, to make the quantum leap to the 9th wave from the 8th wave. One person who has developed a practice who offers that on the internet is Patricia Albert, and she has spiritual practices leading to that kind of unity state of consciousness. But so it exists. And another aspect of the whole thing is to sort of follow the waves. Let's see if I go further on here. There we go. So this is for today then. This is the 9th wave, and to follow the waves. And what I can say then, really generally speaking, is that to the extent that you are in resonance with this process, sorry, sorry, I haven't lost it there. To the extent, then you will find that, that you will have more of wind on your back in these time periods that are peaks. But when you're going down into these valleys, you will face more resistance, or new things will come up for you to deal with in order to go in the direction of that state of unity consciousness where the universe is really meant to take us.
Like fitting now that Solkin, to say it somehow, to go day by day, seeing what they were throwing in tones and glyphs, that day by day, the information that you need to pack up to know that macrocosmically you are, flowing through the wave instead of generating resistance, which would represent the entropy,
Yeah.
Whereas if we are flowing through the wave, we are creating the perfect order, even within chaos, in order to reach that negentropy.
Sure.
So you showed also another slide where it says that the ninth wave began on March 9th,
Yes.
2011. So I'm quite sure that this is related to the 2012 myth that came through the field that the world was coming to an end and so forth. But you mentioned to me last time when we talked that actually, like the exact day for that transition, that consciousness transition happened on the 21st of October of 2011. Am I right?
Yeah, well, 28th of October 2011. Yeah. I started to work about with the Mayan calendar in the early 90s. That's when I left my previous career and started to study it. And I came to conclude then, based on my studies, that December 21, 2012, nothing will happen. And I would say it all the time because I knew people were being led by people who didn't go deeply into the calendar system. On the other hand, if you think about it, if you remember a little bit of the year 2011, then especially after the activation of the ninth wave in March of 9th of that year, then you have the Occupy movement, and then you have the Arabic Spring, and it was actually a whole year that followed that, the activation of the ninth wave, where people were really protesting against all the kind of hierarchical structures that dominate human society. It came to an end, and things shifted over into these valleys, as we can say, and then people sort of seem to have forgotten about the Mayan calendar, a lot of it. But really, that was a significant change. And even if it was only temporarily, once that ninth wave was activated, you could really see it in how people were relating to the hierarchical structures of many different levels that have dominated our world. These, some of these waves, like the sixth wave, we looked at the Mishtek duality there. When people were dominated by these dualistic states of consciousness, they also sort of projected inequality. They would project that some people they would project the darkness onto, others they would project the light to. And so then for that reason, a society was created that was based on dominance and inequality and so forth. But that's how it was for most of the past 5,000 years, because people have been dominated by that kind of a state of consciousness. And then it came this 2011. It was more like a first feeler, you can say, a first example of returning to a state of unity. It came to an end, you might say, and but then that's not the end of anything. It's not the end of the world. It's not the end of the calendar. It's just something that we will get another chance to move into in the times ahead.
And for instance, these waves that are within the ninth wave, as we can see in this image, how many days go in between the
Yeah.
markers?
Yeah, it's 36 days. So it's 9 days up, 9 days down, nine more ways down, and then 9 days up.
Okay, I see. So that's how you begin with your macrocosmic quantum theory.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I begin with it like this, but it certainly is part of it. But we should remind ourselves that we're all the waves are continuing to run, and
Yes.
we are somehow the affected by all of them, and it depends on how we craft our paths in life, to what extent we will go forward into this ninth wave, or even if we'll stay into a much more conflict-ridden sixth wave or so. So the waves are currently running in parallel, and returning to that question about what happened, people said that the Mayan. Oops. Oh, don't I have it? No, I don't have it. Okay, but there is an inscription from ancient times where it sort of says that in 2011 all the waves were the Bolon Yokte Ku, the 9-leveled deity, would appear in his full regalia. And what I understand that to mean is that all the waves, the full regalia, means the totality of all the waves are there, and the possibilities are created by the composite, or the total of those.
Of course, because believing that we are just all in the ninth wave will be kind of a linear form of perception.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Life still happens to us.
Yeah. And we need all the ingredients,
Yeah.
There's like, not because we have our third eye chakra very developed, it doesn't mean that we're not using the rest of our chakras. So there is a question in relation to what we were talking about, the initiation also of the Baktun, of the Baktun 14, right? Which is which was
Okay.
in that date of 2011.
Okay. Yeah, there's something else. Yes, I want to add, and then
Okay,
that should
sure. Please.
So, where do we have it now? Okay. Oh, here we go. Okay, so here we have the deities and of the Trecena, and this applies to any of the nine waves. It's just that with different waves, the time period will have different duration. So there are some of them where a peak will be 1 billion years, and others, as we just saw, 18 days. But then that can be applied to the so-called long count, which is the sixth of the waves. And this is the one that the Maya were using in their time. And they essentially lived in this area here, the high culture of the Maya, so to speak.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but you said that sometimes the constants were involving different series of numbers, sometimes months, sometimes days.
Well, the time periods are different. Here you can see it's actually 400 years, almost 400 years, 394 years. But then earlier we saw, this is the sixth wave, and earlier we looked at the ninth wave, and then a time period like this is just 18 days. And the reason is that as you climb the pyramid, the frequencies will increase. But then these are then 13 baktuns, because baktun is almost 400 years. And then if you look at the world, and then you can see here where we are, so to speak, that what happened when the first peak began in the sixth wave, in the long count. That's when the first civilizations emerged in Egypt and in Mesopotamia and a couple of other places as well. And then every peak will actually bring a new civilization, or not a civilization, but a new peak will bring a new empire. And then every time there is a new peak, there is actually something important, some important empire that is created. But then when it goes down, then there will usually be some kind of either a collapse or a significant transformation of that particular empire. Just take let me just take the example of the Roman Empire, so to speak. So the Roman Empire, it goes down here and it comes to an end basically here. But it doesn't mean that the world comes to an end. It doesn't mean that everybody dies, as obviously. It's just that in this particular case, it was a tremendous transformation of the Roman Empire from having been an empire ruled by generals and senators and so forth, to the Dark Ages that followed, and basically was ruled by the new Christian religion that was centered in the Vatican in Rome. So people survived, but it was certainly a downfall of the previous civilization. And then, when we come here to the last of these 7 peaks, what starts with that is the beginning of the British Empire, and eventually goes into an American empire, you can say. But then we have now gone into a time, the time when that's gone into a dark age. And what that means is that most likely we're up for some major transformation. And
So
yeah.
I'm sorry. You were saying there is like a lot of questions and things coming to me. Like, well,
okay, yeah, please go ahead. Yeah.
So how I see it is this beautiful symphony of all these tones together, these waves creating it, and what the ninth wave is pointing out to, could one of the things is like a constant insight, like in terms of consciousness, of the state of awareness of like the knowingness, the fact of knowing ourselves. So it's asking us to go quickly every 9 days. The rhythm is faster because we need to go in through that introspection, and that's what a lot of people told me that like they are in these beautiful peaks, and then they just go down, and then again, and then, but like very repetitive recently. you know.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And yeah, so, and for instance, of course, while this wave is still on, it is showing to us what is happening to the countries, you know,
Mm-hmm.
how politic systems, economic systems are collapsing, and, you know, like showing into the rise of another form of economy, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
they're simultaneously existing. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot more to say, of course, but on top of that, say on top of this, there are
Mhm.
then the higher waves, the seventh wave, the eighth wave, and the ninth wave. And so even if there is a collapse maybe, or at least a very serious downfall of the system of dominance that have come with a sixth wave, then in addition to that, people that are resonating, developing resonance, and whether they know it or not is maybe not the most important thing, but whether they know it or not, if they're developing the resonance with the eighth and ninth wave, so to speak, they're transcending, and they transcending the previous state of consciousness, and looking for finding ways, I should say, to transcend and then create something better based on these higher waves.
Hmm. And if you see the sixth wave and the ninth wave, as I always say, the six and the nine is the same pattern, just
Mm.
flipped, you know. So
Yeah.
in the sixth wave, we are talking about giving our power to an external force, and in the ninth wave, we're talking
Mm-hmm.
about regaining our power, assuming it, embodying it, and coming from a space of unity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Uh, Beautiful. Uh,
Sure.
there is a question here that it says the Japanese tsunami was March 11, 2011. Any
Yeah.
relation?
I think there was a relationship. I was actually, I was actually on a sort of lost the word. I was on a boat in the Pacific Ocean at that point in time, because I was part of a series of presentations that were made, and so I didn't feel directly this particular um, uh, March 11, the earthquake that took place. But there is probably a connection. All of these energies are actually mediated from the inner core of the earth. And what that means is that whenever there is such a shift, even though I haven't talked about it very much, but whenever there is a shift in the inner core of the earth, and that happens whenever a new wave is activated, then there might be things that need to be adjusted in the whole sort of geological system of the world. So yes, there was this earthquake, 11th of March 2011, just 2 days after this predicted the start of the ninth wave. But there was a similar kind of a thing in 1755 on the right, a huge earthquake on the really opposite side of the world when the seventh wave was activated. And that was the earthquake that destroyed the city of Lisbon, the capital of Portugal.
Yes.
What I meant to say, I was on a cruise. That I lost that word. I was on a cruise, and the cruise was quite a lot. It was based much on my work, so we were sort of looking for whatever would be happening in this particular day, and something very dramatic happened. So there's all kinds of effects of these different waves, and that's why it doesn't end. The study of these doesn't end. It's just a matter of being honest as a researcher and seeing the patterns that seems to be hold up with the right kind of facts and so forth.
Yeah, that was way a confirmation, right? Where you will in
Yeah.
while we were in the cruise talking about this,
Yeah.
and then it's like the living proof, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
And for instance, nowadays, with everything that is happening worldwide, what do you read in the waves? You know?
Well, I have a group around me that we're discussing, people that are quite knowledgeable about the calendar system and so forth. And especially my friend Sean Caulfield, he sort of anticipated that there would be a shift in August 21st, which is
Yes.
a couple of days ago, 6 weeks or something like that. And and this is what that looks like. And it really means that, I hinted at it before, but I said that, after 2011, when there's been this big year of protests in the world, whether it was the Occupy movement or the Arab Spring, then things went completely opposite, or certainly went down, because there was the shift went into these valleys of the dark ages, you might say. Now, this particular trecena that was activated August 21st, it's more positive, and I can feel it, and a lot of those people that can feel these waves, they also recognize that there is a new opening, so to speak. Now, I don't mean to say that will, life will be paradisical, or that all the difficulties will be will come over them, so to speak. But what I do think is that it makes it easier for people, this particular trecena and its activation, to go with the flow, to feel the flow. And that requires that you sort of follow the ninth wave and follows the waves. But then, if you do so, then you will be able to feel, okay, now again, there is this direction, there is some kind of a direction towards a positive goal of the world of unity consciousness. But also this one, it has its valleys, and that's one thing. But it's still comforting, at least for me, to know that the you can actually feel this direction that the universe currently has. And anybody who's able to develop resonance with this eighth wave, they will also find it easier to make the quantum leap to the ninth wave whenever that chance comes. And
It's,
it may be individual for us how much we prepare ourselves and how much we do for that.
it's like bringing in our quantum surfboard,
Yeah,
right?
that's
Uh,
good. That's a
and
good metaphor. Yeah.
and for me, everything that is happening, as difficult as it surely is for a lot of people, and by this I mean everything that is happening even here in Mexico with the hurricanes and so forth, I can definitely see that is rising the consciousness into unity, because a lot of people is coming together, doing meditations, prayers, connecting, visualizing, sending energy as these Tauruses that we are, expanding our field in order to influence. Perhaps this is something very interesting. It's a question for you. Well, at least for me, it's interesting because I'm already seeing seeing it. But for instance, the tide is now going up in this trecena, right? It's going up,
Yeah. Yeah.
and now, for instance, what we see in the segments, like the pieces of the information, you could say it at a micro scale, daily life basis, not that micro. We can see that, like, wait a minute, this is not going up, this is going down, like everything that is
Yeah.
happening, it's taking us down. But when you see the full spectrum and how this has brought people together, then you say, oh, okay, now I get it.
Hmm.
Like
Good.
that is the illusory part, like what we need to go is beyond that veil to see that our power is actually going to manifest that peak in our evolution.
Hmm.
So yeah,
Well
it's
said.
it's
Yeah.
beautiful.
Well said.
Thank you. Thank you. And it's beautiful because everything comes together. And I believe, and for everyone that is joining us or that will be joining us later, for me, it was very important to extend this invitation to Carl because his work is remarkable. And I believe that perhaps you won't be, like every day watching where is the tide at right now.
Yeah.
But just the fact of acknowledging the existence of this information is bringing you in resonance with it. And
Hmm.
regardless whether if you're not like constantly connecting with it, you are already upgrading
Yeah.
the wave in which you are resonating.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah.
even if it's a bit.
Yeah. Hmm.
Um, Carl, there are many interesting slides that you brought. Is there anyone that you would like to talk about, or
Let's see
you
here
know,
if I remember. Yeah, well, these are my most recent books. I want to talk about that. And of
please?
course, my website, calleman.com. And these are my four last books. And let's see here what else. Um, I have some interesting things about the workings of psychedelics, how they
Mm,
how they interact with the geometric structures of the mind, and that's
wow.
really how they work. Um, and before I started with the Mayan calendar, I was a chemist, and I did a lot of things like that. Um, let's
Beautiful.
see here. Let's see here. I mean, yeah, this I'd like to show. It's just this idea of everything is trickling down. The human mind on our level is entangled with, in a quantum sense, it's entangled with these higher levels. And when there are shifts taking place on the cosmic level of a new state of consciousness being created on the level of the entire universe, then that will trickle down until we have the opportunity of developing resonance with it down there. Um,
Hmm.
Aztecs, well, it's a lot about the rise of civilizations. We don't need to look at that. Let's
Hmm.
see here.
You I'm sorry
What?
to interrupt. You were showing the slides about how the the sacred plants, how the elders call them, how they stimulate like the the chemical process that our brain goes through. And it's very interesting because I was thinking precisely about, also besides being correlated to the five platonic solids and the five brain waves, the five is also related to the geometry for the protein, which is the one encoding. So it's interesting because these five waves, humanity is encoding the 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 flow of the consciousness, it's like it's bringing in the codes of how the evolution of the consciousness is um, is flowing, how it is existing, how it is happening.
Hmm.
I do believe that we are, like, I don't know if you have heard about this, yet it is said that planet Earth is a planet which frequency is quite related to encoding information. We know that from a cosmic approach, everything encodes information, like every part, quantum, every photon. It's just, like, um, pulsing a universe of information. However, I believe that these five waves, it's
Hmm.
they are shaping the story of human evolution,
Okay.
and it's
Yeah.
related to the consciousness, to the state of awareness, to our
Okay.
sentient nature.
Yeah. Well, oh, here we go. There we go. Well, I just wanted to add to that. Here, this this pyramid of the temple of the inscription, then that's the pyramid where the great Pakal was buried, and that they found his sarcophagus in the crypt in the center of it, and that's 9-storied. But
Hmm.
then at the side of that, you have a 5-storied pyramid. And in the 1990s, they discovered in this a buried woman
Yes.
called the Red Queen. They called
Yeah.
it a Red Queen because she had taken cinnabar, or they had treated her with. But anyway, that's
Yeah.
presumably that was the wife of Pakal, but they don't really know that. The interesting thing is that then you have you have a 5-storied pyramid that she's in, and then this is beside the 9-storied pyramid that Pakal was in. So it has some kind of connection there. Yeah.
Yes, you mentioned the red and the cinnabar. Uh,
Hmm.
for those ones who doesn't know, cinnabar is, it's a composition of the mercury. It's a form of mercury in powder. And if we shall translate these waves in colors, Carl,
Yeah.
which color would the ninth wave be?
Probably white, if that's the color. I think they usually say that the rainbow has 7 colors, right? And
Yes,
then you can add to the bottom level, which would be the black one, and
and
then the white one at the top.
exactly. Exactly. Yeah, we were talking about this last time.
I guess we did. That's where I
Yes.
got it from. I got it
Yeah.
from you. I got it from you, but I don't know where I got it from. That's good. But it's
Yeah.
meaningful actually in this context.
And the Mayans would use a lot the black and the white
Yeah. Yes.
in their constructions of reality, in
Yeah.
their patterns.
Yeah.
Um, Carl, well, there is another question. Um, if if you can
Hmm.
address to
Okay.
that, is what do you mean by the geometric structures of the mind? How do we experience them?
Well, an easy example would be the difference between the left and the right brain halves. And then you could also say that there is a difference between our frontal lobes and our parietal lobes, the backside of the brain, so to speak. So there is a geometric structure that separates different compartments of our brain, and that is what I call a geometry. And that is also a geometry that over the um, evolution of the universe, it has changed. And that's why people have become different in different eras. That in some eras, people have been like shamanistic. In other eras, they have been dominantly scripturally religious, and so forth. But without those separations of the brain, which is affected by the mind, then those different mentalities would not have emerged. Our mind is dependent on how the brain is compartmentalized.
Now that you mentioned, thank you for answering that. Now that you mentioned the brain, and tuning it, like connecting it into the ninth wave, a lot like it's most commonly connected, because that's something that we can actually see. It's evident that the connection in between our hemispheres, our brain hemispheres, is the corpus callosum. Like it's this this binding. I see like a bouquet, like you take a ribbon, you bind the circuits, and then they are together, and it's full of myelin, that superconductor, and so forth. There are other parts in our brain that, for instance, the Egyptians, talking about the eye of Horus, which a lot of people related to the pineal gland, which is not, because if we see the diagram of the eye of Horus, if we are exact, the iris, I mean the pupil, would be the interthalamic adhesion. And that interthalamic adhesion is actually inside the in all the complex of the insular lobe, the fifth lobe of the brain. So what I am currently like facilitating, it's a lot of information about the plasma, and all this area is it's critical for the production of all these neurochemicals, like the spinal fluid and so forth, that are rich in plasma, besides not to consider the blood. But anyway, I just wanted to say that for me, now that the ninth wave has has come to the field, it would be for me the full restoration of the interconnection in between our hemispheres.
Yes.
Something more organic.
Yes.
Like that interthalamic adhesion taking us through that breach
Yes.
that was sealed before, and now the eye is open.
Yes. Yes, I agree totally.
Well, I would love if you could share about. Oh, I can do this. I'm sorry. I can.
Okay.
I didn't know it.
You have control. Yeah. Yeah.
May I? I'm sorry.
Yeah, okay.
For you to show your books.
Oh yeah, go to the. And that's
yes,
at the very end.
Well, do you want to talk about something in something more?
No, I think I've come across with the most important, but I think it should be clear from my slides that I have very much more that I talk about, and this is presented essentially in these 4 books, and yes.
Do you give any courses?
I do I should say that too. I have courses. I have a course running right now every Saturday. And so if people are interested in that, then they should go to my website and find the place to register. And my website is calleman.com. And I think people there in my courses, they really enjoy the fact that they have a live, that they can ask questions and come with the comments, and it becomes much more interesting when you have that immediate contact with the teacher. So that certainly I would like to invite people to, and these are the.
What's your course on?
Well, it's basically the whole system, It's I have a course now that is in 6 sessions, and it starts with one about the Maya, the history of the Maya. The second one will be about the sacred calendar of 260 days. And then the third one will be about the rise of civilization of the long count. The fourth one will probably be about quantum theory and the origin of life. And then there will be the fifth one. I will also talk about other cultures that honored this plumed serpent, like here in the U.S. Southwest. The plumed serpent was a significant deity here. And then in the last one, I will be talking about the future and the climb to the top of the pyramid, so to speak.
No,
Yeah.
that sounds amazing. And also the titles of your books, like quantum science for David, who was asking on the structure, geometric structures of the mind
Yeah.
that came because due to the psychedelics.
Yeah.
Well, that's surely very interesting. Quantum science of psychedelics.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Okay. Yeah.
and the 9 waves of creation, the global mind,
And
and
the rise of civilization.
okay, and the living universe. Okay, so where can people buy your books besides your website? Can they get
Well,
them in your website?
no, I think it's easiest just to go to Amazon.com.
Okay. Okay, great. So if you're interested, you can get any of the copies of um, Carl's books if you go to Amazon, and well, to also visit his website. Um, do you give conferences,
What do you mean by, what does that mean?
like
Conference?
talks? If there is an
Yeah,
event, and
sure.
okay, okay, great. So also, if you're interested in that. Um,
Yeah.
Carl, is there anything else that you would like to show or say
No,
before?
no,
Okay,
I
so
don't think so. Thank you very much for having me and introducing this material, the basics of the material into your particular audience. Thank you.
hmm, um, any message that you want to give to the audience?
Yeah, well, it's just to find this kind of a flow. It's to know that there is this plan for the humanity to attain that kind of unity consciousness, and we are sort of, some are people are on their way to it, others are not, and it's a matter of finding resonance with the processes that lead there and flow with those processes. And that may be very different from different people. I'm not going to say that there is one way of doing this, but what I do think is that it's good to use these tools that the Mayan calendar provides to help you understand, to help you follow those flow waves of flow that leads there.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Thank
Thank you.
you. Thank you very
Well,
much.
mm, just I want to show this to you and to the audience. This is the chacmol, which
Oh,
is
yes.
it's a Mayan sculptor that you can easily find in many of the ancient sites. And on this side is, if you put together several chacmols, they create all these perfect geometries. So
Uh-huh.
they are living geometries. We just need to put all the pieces together
Yeah.
to generate that motion that brings us to unity. So, Carl, thank you very much
Thank
for
you.
your presence. Thank you for all the work that you're putting out for people to remember and have more tools to restore that unity consciousness within them. And I could say on behalf of the Mayan, thank you. But like your soul knows. So
Yeah.
um, Thank you. And thank you, all of you, for watching this transmission. May all these seeds, as Quetzalcoatl, Cuculcan, or the plumed serpent, was bringing into, according to the ancient texts, may all these seeds expand life within you and make you remember who you are and why you are here for. So thank you, and until next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.